Well, welcome back. Good to see you again.
See you, Chris.
Yeah. How's it going, Iterable?
Yeah, it's going great. We have, I think, 2+ years under our belt, and like I said, I'm an infra engineer, but my background is really as like a backend developer. So I think it's been, trying to make our CRDB deployment just more automated and takes less time to kind of stand up a new deployment, and just all the intricacies of operating different clusters, with limited resources. So yeah, I think it's been challenging, but yeah, it's a learning. I'm really excited to be here. I'm already learning a lot already, like yesterday and today. Just code pairing and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just yesterday, you met some of the other speakers. You were really talking about Kubernetes strategies and so forth. So it's great. Like we're already interacting like before even this whole thing started. So it's awesome. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Iterable for folks that don't know who you are?
Yeah. So when you hear the word iterable, what do you think? Like I had to ask this to my founder because I didn't know what it meant, but Andrew Bonney, he told me it came from like a Scala iterator concept. You kind of like keep iterating on something until you find something that really works. But what Iterable does is they make like your favorite brands and gives them an ability to connect to the right audience. So yeah, like some of my favorite brands that are on Iterable that I've discovered recently is like chess.com. REI is the one that I use, and also like Imperfect Foods is another one. So yeah, it's a lot of these. I mean, it's across
all these, right?
All kinds of verticals. But I really relate to the chess.com part. Just recently became a chess player, so yeah, every time I like look myself up in the Iterable database, like, oh wow, they know a lot about me now. Probably shouldn't be playing chess during all hands, but yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. And then you guys have grown a lot too since the last time you've been here. Look at this. Seeing where you guys are at now is pretty impressive. So we're going to talk about this too, how things have scaled and so forth, and how the architecture's helped you along. So yeah, I don't know. Anything you want to say about the growth and how much fun you've been having?
I think it's really like specifically like on the user profile cluster, it's kind of grown quite a lot. Like the last time I spoke at RoachFest, we were just coming out of like being in production, and since then it's like we've like migrated some of our bigger customers on board, like Grammarly, NBC Universal. So yeah, it's really like getting people to adopt. But this all kind of happens like under the hood. Like we've made it so that newer projects are already like creating, user profiles on CRDB. But like for the legacy ones, like migrating them off without any downtime, like it should just work. It's really a collaboration of like different teams, really.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, maybe let's talk about your application a little bit more, right? So it's all around user identity. It's kind of core to your system and what you do, right?
Yeah.
Give us an idea of the landscape, all the workloads, the behaviors, how users interact with your application.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the overall, what I like to call, kind of like the like life of data, if you will. Like if you think about the top, how data is generated. User can create that data through their interactions, with an email, with an in-app, or it can come from like third-party data providers. So our customers, use APIs, SDKs, and then they build that capability of sending us the data into the Iterable platform. And once it's stored in there, at a reasonable time, marketers can then really like activate a lot of the data and to kind of drive value and to figure out how to reach their target audience. It could be like your simple abandoned cart kind of journey, or it could even be something like more real time. Like we recently launched this feature called Iterable Embedded Messages, And it's kind of like another use case that we're on now. It's a small cluster, but we're just kind of rolling it out slowly. It's to give customers like real-time, give marketers real-time idea of, okay, does this user qualify for our latest promotion? Like it could be Father's Day coming up this Sunday or Saturday, Sunday, and then it's like,
someone's got to take care of you.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the intelligence layer that we provide. Oh, somebody got on call. Yeah, and the last red layer is really about like the outreach, right? Like we started with email, we went into mobile app push, and recently we're really trying to build a global audience using WhatsApp because that's a huge channel to be going after. So that's the social audiences part. And yeah, the user identity really sits at the core of everything, like all the API calls, all the SDK calls. So it has to, just work. And it was challenging, like when I had my first outage, like first P1 incident. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking, honestly. But CRDB was there to kind of help support it. It was nice.
Cool, good. Glad we can be there for you. And just by looking at this with multi-channel, all these incoming data sources, you have users coming that's setting up all these, campaigns or events and so forth. So, it must be hard to think about what the workload is going to be on a day-in, day-out basis, right? There's a lot of inputs, outputs, a lot of activity. I don't know, are things seasonal for you, or are there certain times of day where like you have peak traffic and so forth?
That's a good question. I think about there are patterns to to our load. Of course, there's like seasonal patterns, like Black Friday is like a big holiday for us. You can think about that. But other clusters, we have like a journeys cluster, and that one tends to be very like hourly. So you'll see jobs that will kind of start and finish on the hour or start on the hour. So some tweaks are just kind of simple things like maybe rate limit some of the TTL jobs, or don't do backups, on the hour, kind of stagger them, do it at off-peak time. There's definitely some patterns to that as well.
Okay, and how do you plan for like the scaling of these events? Is this things that you prepare for, or things automated as far as when you need more capacity?
I think we have alerts and monitoring set up.
Okay,
there are best practices from Cockroach Labs saying, okay, you should monitor all the instant CPU, memory, connection sizes and all that. So we monitor that. It doesn't auto scale because we run it on EKS, and we actually run it needs to kind of Tetris into the instance sizes. So we don't just kind of auto scale and spin up and spin down. We kind of keep an eye on it, and then I'm the one that's kind of doing the increases. But there are like tweaks you can make with memory, with like the different EBS, like IOPS and throughput. Different clusters do like behave differently. So but you can also maybe I over provision, I can scale down to save cogs and all that.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and all that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to mention anything else here?
I was gonna say like on the Prometheus end, it's so we ingest that data into Datadogs, and it's a rich data set, and then if you need like additional data sets to kind of help you monitor and scale, it's pretty easy to kind of add in the additional metrics as well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we're Datadog users too, so a lot of our customers are. So, cool. Well, that's fascinating stuff. So we're going to get a little bit more about maybe a little bit more of the guts of the application and your architecture and so forth. So this is essentially your user API, right? And maybe you want to just talk about how this interacts with how you acquire user identities, and then what happens from here.
Yeah, so I think it's worth to note that we started out using Elasticsearch quite a lot. We're still a huge, heavy user of Elasticsearch, and that stores all of the users and the events that they generate. So it's really like, how do we offload some of that traffic away from Elasticsearch? And that's where like the CRDB comes in. So on the JSON on the left, there's two parts. The first one is just like a user and an event. This is just so you can kind of visualize what kind of data you're dealing with. So yeah, chess.com. Here's my user I found, and then here was a recent event. Like an email saying, oh, how can you explore the strengths and weaknesses of your pieces? So yeah, this is a way to kind of look up the user and join it to find relevant events for the marketers.
Cool. Yeah. And then what have you found on the Cockroach side of things that helped you optimize for access, for lowering latency? Any cool concepts you want to
Yeah, I think like one of the coolest thing I discovered, like because I've always been like into Postgres, MySQL. One thing like going into CRDB is like this idea of like hot ranges and how you shouldn't make like sequential keys.
Yeah, we appreciate using UUIDs.
Yeah, UUIDs. Like I think there's a blog on your website saying that if you can like go for the like the native keys, but then to support that, you use something called like the hash sharded index to kind of spread it out. So in the UUID case, like it works if you're going to pick like email, right? You want to kind of spread it evenly because they're not. I assume it's not evenly distributed. So yeah, that was kind of useful. That was different for me to kind of learn. Where it didn't work was like for our second use case in the journeys cluster. We started out thinking, okay, that's the strategy we should go with. Just use hash sharded index, but we actually found that led to like slower queries, just because we want like the data to be like co-located. So using more like native keys, like your simple like like a hierarchy of things when you look it up. So that was kind of useful. So it's not, it's kind of like I have to think about the business logic and then tailor the schema to fit. And I think as a DevOps infra guy, that's a little challenging at times because I'm not like in the code and
as a modeler.
Yeah, so then you really kind of have to like understand the product as a whole. So it helps to like think holistically in that just to really understand how our users are executing.
And you have to like educate those application teams that come to create new.
I feel like they're educating me more than.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But modeling is a key thing. We talked about this a lot. Actually, even my own team, like there's a lot of relational concepts that come over into Cockroach, but it's a little bit different as far as how you think about keying strategies and so forth.
Like we haven't done a migration where it's like an existing schema and we're migrating to CRDB. But if we do that, I think there's like a mult tool to like check the schema compatibility. So I'm kind of excited to, if there's a need for that as well.
Yeah, we have an afternoon session on it.
So. Oh, nice.
Yeah, make sure you stick around. Cool. Yeah. Anything else that we want to go through here as far as user APIs or data modeling or other things that you learned along the way that you want other folks to know about?
Things I learned along the way. I think there's just. It's surprising, like on the Slack channels and just the public community Slack channels, it's actually a good resource to connect with other people using the Helm charts or setting up in EKS. So that was kind of nice just to talk to people through Slack.
We should go into that. Let's go into your architecture. Let's see if I can bring it up here.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a little small to see, but I think the takeaway here is we run just in one region, but it's across like split between 3 AZs. We run in AWS on Kubernetes, and we're using like the operator pattern. And yeah, I think it's like a pretty vanilla setup. But what's nice about it is I only have to install all the like supporting cast of characters like the operator and our Datadog daemon sets and like audit logging, all that. I only have to install it once, and then I can just add other clusters on top of it. So like one operator is now managing like 4 clusters.
Multiple clusters.
Yeah, 4 clusters now, and and I'm recently making updates so that it can like spread more evenly through the AZs, like through the use of like max SKUs in the pod anti-affinity rule set.
Okay.
And then another upgrade is like it was actually really easy to get it working on the new Graviton instances. the challenge was actually first just getting it to join the EKS cluster. So we tested out like, oh, we can get cost savings by running generic workloads on these Graviton instances. And then we were like, oh, there's a binary that works in CockroachDB. So that was nice.
So you saw the cost per performance gain with Graviton then?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it sounds like you have like a good standard, I don't want to say vanilla, but Kubernetes setup using the operator. So it looks like you're at the point where this is almost like a platform for you. It sounds like you can kind of stamp out clusters if you needed to as you have use cases and so forth. Is that kind of like where you have evolved to?
Yeah, like the first time when you do a rolling restart, it was kind of nerve-wracking. I'm like, okay, it's like under-replicated, but then you're like staring at the errors, like, oh, are the errors climbing? Oh, no, it's fine. And I think the key is really working with the Cockroach Labs team to help us, make a feature request. Like I remember they added in the ability to like tune the paw termination the graceful paw termination period so that it matches like the life of our Hikari pool, which is like the client side pooler.
Cool, yep.
And the load balancer is sort of just taking the active node out of service, and then it would just kind of let all the connections die and then switch the future connections to the next pod. So that was really nice. Although there was some misconfiguration on my end with IAM, so yeah, I've made like just like more. Okay, let's say if other services aren't running, like what's the worst? Like how do I prevent that from failing? So since I'm running all these on dedicated nodes, I just gave like the permissions to the node itself to whatever AWS permission it needs to like update target groups and all that. So that was nice.
Cool, very cool. So yeah, if you had to go back and do this all again, what would you do different?
I had to go back. Oh, okay. So I wish our, so the way now we deploy the cluster is using Argo CD. I think this afternoon people talk about that. I wish everything was already on Argo because I can really version these clusters really easily. The way we were doing it before is like, I really need to, like with every Terraform module, it wasn't easy to version it, but with Argo, it's much easier to like version a chart. So yeah, if I were to go back and do it over again, yeah, I wish Argo was there already. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's talk about what other tooling you're using here. So it sounds like you're using Terraform, right?
Yeah.
Helm, Argo. You have connectivity to Sumo Logic. Any other tooling that you use here as far as, you mentioned Datadog for monitoring.
Yeah.
Any other key components you thought that were useful for setting up your environment?
I think the key thing to call out was in the enterprise cluster, we had this requirement to get data like user ID at like near real time to Snowflake.
Okay. So
we found this feature called change feed. And it was relatively painless to set up like CDC into essentially S3,
mm-hmm.
and then there's like a snow pipe staging ground where they would receive like an SQS notification, and then they would essentially like do a read from the bucket to get it into the right table in Snowflake. Yeah, so as a DevOps engineer, that was pretty simple to set up. So I think that feature is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's not on this diagram.
Yeah, it's one of our fun features. You don't have to set up anything ancillary for CDC. It just works out of the box and point it to where it needs to go, and off you go. So that's great. I'm glad you're making use of change feeds.
Yeah.
What else? While we're here, we're talking about your setup, we're talking about the operator. What would you like us to improve upon? Like, what could Cockroach do better as far as making your setup, administration, resiliency, anything else that you'd want us to do?
Yeah, I think with the operator, some of the pain is for me, it's a lot of manual, like DB ops kind of work once the cluster gets going. Like things like configuring these cluster settings, setting up users, permissions and tables.
So like bootstrap.
Bootstrapping, yeah, bootstrapping. I recently, have seen how like Elasticsearch ECK gets deployed. Like for example, if I want to have human users create it, essentially I mount like a secret, like a Kubernetes secret, with the password that's hashed. I wish there was a way for Cockroach to do that. I would like mount like an external secret I could store in Vault or some other secret providers, and that gets audited, and that gets created automatically. Like it's more declarative than, but we've like made this other service to kind of work around it. But I wish that was like more out of the box, and that kind of can play well with the other like cloud native way of doing things.
Interesting. Okay.
That's one. The second one I think you guys closed the loop on is row-based SQL audits. It's like if you only want audit logs coming from certain users. I think that wasn't done before, but now that's available.
Oh yeah, I know one customer that really wanted that, so I'm glad it benefited you too.
Yeah, because some users can be quite chatty, right? Like if it's a service user,
yeah,
they wanna, yeah.
That was exactly their use case. They didn't want all these service account things kind of logged in the audit log. So
yeah. Yeah, the way we got around it is we just wrote some custom logic that we filter out certain users, but that's awesome. Other things wish we had.
It's a pretty good list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So I guess what's next? What's next for Iterable?
Yeah, I think it's more about reducing the time to production with a lot of these clusters. Like let's say that if another team at Iterable want to use CRDB, can I make the infrastructure more self-serviceable? That's one. And personally, for me, it's like kind of understanding some of the stuff from the COGS perspective, like between AZ transfers. I don't quite know exactly how to like go into like the cost explorer and really like find that out and kind of plan for the cost. Like, is it in the schema that maybe that they're not optimizing for that's leading to a lot of cross AZ chats? Is that why? Or yeah, so that's really for me to kind of figure out. Yeah, but I have to say, like like this, I think we're doing a good job, like keeping up with the newer versions. Just because like doing a rolling restart to upgrade is kind of like you can do it at business hours really, rather than waiting for that off peak. So yeah, that's
great. So upgrades are fairly painless then.
I would say so. Upgrades are like
yeah. Database upgrades are always fun in the past. So it's nice that you could just roll with them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so anything else? Any other words of wisdom that you want to give some of the folks out there that might be even getting started with Cockroach or even with user identity management? Any other key tidbits?
Well, I was really surprised to find I can just kind of spin up like that serverless and connect to it. Like, so if you're an application developer, like spinning that up, just testing it out, and putting some load on it to see how it would perform is good. Yeah, I would say that's it.
Awesome. Well, I know we're between lunch, which is like the best session of the day. So, I think we're a little, behind schedule too. So maybe we'll just get a few minutes early.
Yeah.
But Jack, really appreciate you coming to the stage again, talking about all the great things that Iterable's doing.
Sure.
So thank you. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks
for having me.
Yeah.